they take the bench, they're committing treason and tyranny and usurpation. And Ross is here with me, and we look forward to continuing our effort together. We're now working and developing the other 4 memorandums for you, Anthony, that deals with the way in which the legislature and the Senate has to conduct their activities, on taking to the yeas and nays, the reading of the bills on 3 several days, the mode and style and by the way in which bills are passed and resolutions are passed. It is absolutely shameful of the irrefutable evidence that we have in our possession, and we're ultimately going to make it public. And there are going to be a lot of people that are going to have to recognize the fact that I have been conducting this activity for a long time. Ignorance is no excuse of law. Everybody's supposed to be knowledgeable of the law. And I envision there's going to be a lot of resignations. If not, there's going to be a lot of prosecutions, and it'll come from a higher prosecution than these local DAs that are committing the same things as what these judges are doing. There's no question that common law courts are probably going to be the prevailing thing, and I think Parum's going to be leading the way for the first one to come into existence. It has to happen.
Yeah, I had breakfast with John Boster this morning, and I gave him the 63 pages, and he actually put it in a PDF file, and I shot it out to Vinny. And the first thing he said to me, he says, 1991, he says, the Highway Patrol Association turned around and said that these NRSs are no good. Now, how are they still working with them when they're admitting that they're no good?
Yeah, and they also, it was what you're speaking to in that case, that's the Nevada Highway Patrol Association versus the Department of Public Safety Motor Vehicles, and by which a lot of incarcerated people are under the public safety of the state. And in that, the joint resolutions that they used to do the same thing that they did with these joint resolutions to create the Nevada revised statutes by using a copy of an engrossed bill, and by leaving out the enactment language, and by not complying to Joint House Rule Number 7, and by violating of the Nevada Constitution Article 4, Section 17 and 23. Then there's violations of the separation of powers and the doctrines. It is the most shameful thing that anybody could ever review. And we have been blessed and very fortunate to do the research and obtain the documents and the irrefutable evidence. And I got to tell you, Ross is sitting here, and he was a little skeptic when we met. He had heard about the show, and somebody called him and said, "Wow, that's a friend of ours knows him." So Ross called me up, and I invited him over. We were only going to spend about 15 minutes together. We wanted to spend hours together.
Yes,
in fact, we worked
6
all
hours.
night till about 3 in the morning yesterday.
Yeah.
And Ross goes, "Daggone, this is authenticated stuff." And you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. Some of the issues that he's bringing forward, such as single subject in the Nevada Constitution, when you pass a law, it has to be a single subject. You can't have 2 subjects in the same bill, because then it gets too convoluted and gets confusing, and nobody's sure what they're voting on sometimes. But anyway, that's a constitutional requirement. So I've used that before on certain things that I've done for licensed attorneys that I've worked for. But what I found fascinating in this particular case is the information about the Legislative Counsel Bureau, which is really like sort of another branch of government that's flying under its own flag,
Yeah, that's what I was calling the shadow government.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can call it a shadow government, but what you're really saying is that that our government is it's being run by corporations. So this guy named Russell West
McDonald.
Russell West McDonald was appointed by 3 Supreme Court judges who were sitting on a statutory revision commission, which they constitutionally had no authority to do, and we're getting remuneration for that. So they're holding another position besides their judgeship, not allowed to do that according to the Constitution. They were doing that, and they decided to hire this guy, who they say he's a Rhodes Scholar, he's a native Nevadan, he's gone through our public school system and onto what Harvard was it Stanford?
Stanford.
Onto Stanford, got his Juris Doctorate in Stanford. But you go to these places, and they don't know, they never heard of the guy. And then there's a newspaper article talking about Russell West, and it says he was born in Placerville, California, or
Placer
something.
Creek, California.
Yeah.
1917.
So what we
Yeah.
have here, well, I'll try to explain it as a street guy, tow truck driver that I am.
Okay.
Okay? We got 3 judges that are doing illegal acts.
Yeah.
They don't want to get in trouble for it, so they bring this guy in, appoint him to do stuff for them.
They made him the director.
Made him the director, so they could cover their behinds and have him take care of it, and this whole thing is just not correct.
The problem is he referred back to, Russell McDonald referred back that he went back to the commission, the statutory revision commission, which consisted of Milton Bant, Edgar Uther, and Charlie Merrill. Those were the 3 justices of the Supreme Court. And he referred to them that they made all these revisions and changes and
Yeah,
annotations.
they did legislative work on the statutes at large. So
Well,
they
the
changed
DAs
it.
claim it's quasi.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, when you go to Article 6, Section 11 of the Constitution, it refers that justices and judges shall not sit on any other office except that by which they appertain to, by which they were elected to do. Then you go to Article 3, Section 1, it says they shall not perform any function. Now the word any is very clear. I mean, it's clear and plain. Any function. Call it quasi, call it, some kind of bingo game or whatever they were
You
doing.
can call it whatever you want. It's still manure, you know.
Right.
It,
It still stinks.
the bottom line is that these people were selling off these statute books before they were ever approved to do it, and they were pocketing the money.
Yeah.
And basically, when you really look at it, folks, they were running a criminal enterprise. And then the same guy wearing all the hats,
Right. Got another one.
he became the legislative counsel, and they passed bills and all. And they transferred all the power and authority to him. He passed in the bill on May of 1951, stripping the Secretary of State of all of its journals and documents and bills and everything. Took control of them, claiming he needed all that in order to assist in writing the revision bills and doing the rewrites and add-ons and everything else that they did, and taking away some of the wording and compiling everything. And he wound up keeping that stuff. And then in July 1st of 1963, he abolished the Statute Revision Commission. They transferred all the power and authority to this guy, Russell McDonald, the Legislative Counsel. He created this division. Then he made the division of the Legislative Council. He made that part of the
Italians, don't worry about it.
yeah. He made. Hey, there you go. He made that part of the Legislative Council Bureau, and then, folks, what he did, he turned around and became the director of it. Then along here's Harry Reid, see, and all them, and what they do, they form what's called the Legislative Committee. So they thought that they could insulate the LCB and have a private and unsurfaced contract so that the citizens knew nothing of this. And they assumed because the Legislative Council Bureau carried the name legislative, that assumption, psychological assumption, made all the citizens think they were part of the legislature, when they're not. They're a private entity running our government, controlling the purse strings. They write the checks. They change the bills. They write things against the citizens and its children. And it's just out of control. They even took over the state printing company now. They control the keys to the maintenance of all of our government buildings. See what I mean? So, and it's run by Rick Combs and Linda Enrose, and Keith Powers is their chief litigation counsel. And again, I told you, he said on page 28 of his, an attorney general should have represented these legislators. The OCB steps in and represents William Horn when he was sued by Ian Black, and Secretary of State at that time was Ross Miller. He sued him in federal court. The LCB stepped in and represented him instead of the Attorney General. And then he said on page 28, well, there's an old saying, if the citizens are asleep on their rights, the old saying goes, you snooze, you lose. Now, that statement right there is enough to demonstrate the corruption of these people and how the egomaniacs that exist within our government that all needs to be abolished, and it needs to be put back into the 3 branches of government. and we need to unify that government properly. You know what I'm saying? And put each one of them back in control of their own destiny and their own separation of powers the way it should be. And the only way we're going to do it, because the ex post factos and Bright Ross and
Right.
Basic Law 101, you can't go back retroactive. You're going to have to go to common law court.
Right, now, that's what they said. Now, I went to a meeting this Saturday with the DA. We didn't discuss this, but the meeting before that was a month before, and I started bringing some of this up, and I really didn't know that much about it. And I says, you know, the NRSs are not valid. She says, well, we've been using them so long, that's just what it's going to be.
No, that isn't going to
Well-
See, but that's, I guess that's what they're being told. Well, we've been doing this long. And
Anthony, think of this. They were using the statutes of Nevada for so long, and that's the way it was going to be. And then came along the Nevada revised statutes, and that's the way it's going to be. Well, now the way it's going to be is common law courts till we get this straightened out. And then there's probably going to be, collectively, the state and the citizens will vote in a core group that will write for the Nevada advanced statutes for the 21st century and fix this mess.
Now, the way I understand it, every one of those Nevada revised statutes, because they're invalid, they cannot be just typed into a computer somewhere and say, this is what it's going to be. Those are gone, right?
They're void ab initio.
They're
Right.
void, they're done, they can't use them.
That's right.
So they can't do a blanket vote and just say, okay, we're going to take everything the way it is.
No, that's what they did in the first place, which
Okay.
which violates the Nevada Constitution. So
Okay.
that's the problem. You know, is they just took all these new rewritten statutes that are all in each one in their own category. They reworded some of them. They took words out. They put new words in. They actually wrote law. Okay, but the three justices on the panel, they say they didn't do it. This Russell McDonald guy did it, who's supposedly a lawyer, but you can't verify that because they say they never heard of him.
Now, this Marilyn Kirkpatrick, unfortunately, she walked into Tom Collins, the commissioner's position. She no doubt the citizens of the state are going to make a world of mistake, and they're going to re-elect her. It's going to be a terrible mistake. But she was the chairman of the legislative committee that entered into the new private contract with Rick Combs of the LCB. And she knows that all this is illegal and unconstitutional. And I'm here to tell you, we are on the brink of more serious contamination in this government. When Masto gets in office, in the Senate, I have nothing personally against her. I have nothing personally to gain from this. It's that she is so corrupt and contaminated and controlled. It is going to be absolutely pathetic. And folks, if you think Dirty Harry was bad when you find out, she's going to make him look like a molehill.
You got to see the ads that they're running against her right now.
Well, somebody
They're actually talking just corruption on TV about her.
well, somebody hacked our attorney, Breaking the Chains attorney, a website called Watchdog, and they got a wanted poster for treason up there with her picture on it. We didn't have anything to do with that aspect, but they laid it all out what she's done. But I know when she did this stuff out here at Red Rock, Representative Dina Titus, when they passed that illegal and unconstitutional bill, folks, it took 10 years to get the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to certify all that in the negative, and said you can't go around and you can't form any other kind of a county government, and you can't do the agency, you can't do the things that they did. But when you put these people in office and you find out they do these horrific things, it takes years to correct it.
And I tell you, you really don't hear anything about this on how tight all these people are together. But these people are one pair of legs with 20 heads, and that's who these people are. Dina Titus, Harry Reid, the judges, they are all one. It doesn't. They may wear different clothes, and they may look a little different when they're in the mirror, but that's all one action going on.
Yeah, they know how to make their backroom deals and their golf course events, right? Ross?
Right. You know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the business goes on, you know, not in their courtrooms because everybody's paranoid about being recorded. But, you know, Most people don't know how to tap into people's cell phones, but the FBI does. I mean, they listen to people talking in their car through OnStar and things like that. I talked to one of the defendants in the G-string sting, and he said he was riding with Gallardi in his car, and the FBI recorded all their conversations in the car through the OnStar.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done some research having to do with wiretaps here in Nevada on a case, and it's interesting to find out that the detective that recorded calls were actually intercepted calls on the case that I worked on, said he hasn't gotten a wiretap in 25 years and he has no reason to ever get one. Because what they do is there's a police station exception where they can listen in on another line. But what they do is they actually don't do that. What they actually do is they do a three-way call, and then they say that's an extension. So it's not an extension phone. You see what I'm saying? So that's how they get around it. But what they do is, see, on a regular wiretap, they have to record the entire conversation. That recording has to go into the judge's vault in the evidence room, wherever it goes. It has to go in the judge's vault, and he has to hang on to it for more than 5 years after the case is even over with, because of appeals and that sort of thing. Now, the best part about that is you've got a recording. You can go back to the recording and you can determine whether or not the transcript that is made about the conversation is accurate. But what they're doing is they're just listening in on the conversation, and they're making what they call fast and furious notes, and then they go back to their typewriter, to their word processor, and they just start typing. And then they destroy their original notes. So they may not have taken any. You don't know. They said they destroy their original notes, so there's no conflict, and then they just basically make up a story. That's all they have to do, make up a story.
You know, the citizens are, not to change subject, but staying somewhat focused on this NRS stuff, the citizens of the state are going to have to put together some form of demand or petition or cease and desist or something together and sign it in order that and push for the order to be issued that the Secretary of State must go to the LCB and demand that they turn back over all records, journals and bills and research and everything else. And all the archives go back under the control of the Secretary of State under Article 5, Section 20 as it mandates commands. Once you do that, then you've got this LCB is sitting there somewhat powerless because they have no reference material to continue on with their strike. You know, and so that manipulation has to stop.
Now, here's a question, a legal question. They're saying that they could listen to any cell phone conversation because the airways are free. They don't need a wiretap.
That's not true.
Okay, so
Because I can't.
okay,
Because if I did that, I would be committing a crime. Because what they've done is they've, the Bearcat scanner. You've heard of that before.
Right,
Well,
sure.
that's
I
Have
used to
one
work
right
on
in
it.
front of me. Yeah.
I was an electronic technician, and we started that in Cumberland, Indiana, that factory. I happened to work for them when they
Bearcat?
originated. Yeah, I was a line technician for them, and Regency Electronics also.
well, the older Bearcat scanners, you can hear the cellular frequencies, but they've cut them out now because people were being less reluctant to use the cell phone for private, secure conversations. But so if you have one of those, you can still listen to cell phones. And how can you be prosecuted for it? Well, I don't know, but they're gonna catch you. But I don't know how they're gonna catch you unless somebody turns you in that knows you're doing it.
right.
See what I'm saying?
What they do, they filter off. If you look at a Bearcat scanner, any of them, they have crystals technology, and they have a fundamental frequency, and then they have a courier frequency. And then the difference between that oscillation is what's called the spurious response. They tap into that spurious response, and they redirect those airwaves. You follow me? And they can do it in frequency modulation, and they can do it in amplified modulation. So they can even do it on your FM station and your AM station. And they can also ride skirts over the top of all that.
Let's put this NSA. They can do anything they want.
That's right.
Okay, they can record, and what they built in Utah, they can record everything.
But you know something? I want to say this. I'm a transparent person. I don't have nothing to hide from anybody or these folks listening or anything. I have no axe to grind with the sheriff, these judges or anything, except for their ways. Okay? And their ways are corrupt. Their ways are not correct. That's all. If we're going to lock people up for committing crimes and punishment, then we got to look at the ones that are locking them up, that are committing worse crimes and punishment. And we need to deal with that. And we just need to get real correct so that we have a pure system. As pure as we could get as close to. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Listen, I'm not easy on crime, but I don't like the idea where they lock you up for one thing and they put 20 charges on you, so you plead guilty to 3 and you only did one thing wrong. That I have a problem with, and I don't like them falsifying documents to turn around and make you guilty of something. That's my problem. If
Yeah,
you do
that's
a
what happened to
crime,
me.
you have to do the time.
That's
But
right.
don't make up stories to destroy somebody for no reason.
Hey, you just take an example of what happened to me, Ross, and
Yeah.
Right.
you've seen it.
Sure.
They had a backroom deal, and they turned around and they wiped out all those 17 crimes of claiming that I forged deeds, and I've been a recorder's office. I've never been a recorder's office in my life and couldn't even tell you how to get there.
Because if you had a fair trial, you could prove that there was all lies.
Yeah, they knocked out my 26 witnesses, my 3 rebuttal witnesses, and my handwriting expert. And the judge deliberately knew that. He skilled. The DA knew that. And they're prosecuting my trial attorney at the same time I am by the same DA's office and never disclosed it. Are you kidding me? And yet they took my life away from me and gave me 28 to 64 years. The most terrible thing that came out of all this is that my mother grieved herself to death over me being in prison. The best thing that came out of it was that I have an opportunity to take this stuff forward and all this research and correct it. And if a man from who was illiterate from Florida named Clarence Gideon can change the whole judicial system there and even make a dent in the national system,
Right. Right.
I
Gideon
have
versus
to know
Wainwright.
that lining myself. Listen, we've all been brought together by a higher power than what we understand, and by the grace of God and the spirituality people that we are, we got to get this correct, and we got to get it back to a pure state. Get rid of all this corruption. Now I'm going to scratch your back, or I'm going to give you this extra bonus, or I'm going to figure a way to police something over here, and I want to burn this guy because this guy's making it rough on me or whatever. I did a show with Gordon Martinez the other day. He was the arresting officer Saturday. They wanted me on it for 10 minutes. I think we ran about 15, but they now want me to come back on Saturday. He was the arresting officer of O.J. Simpson. And while I was sitting there listening, it kind of stunned me that this one person that had posed a threat to a lot of these high-powered people, they found this guy's head on the side of a road. Wow, I didn't know that, but I want to tell you something. I am fearless of anything or anybody. As long as I don't know what hit me, I could care less. I had a good life. And if I go down making this here right, righting a right, then so be it.
Exactly right.
Because let me tell you, folks, there are going to be a lot of judges. They're either going to step down or they're going to be going to jail and they're about to be cuffed. There's a higher group of people up in our national government that is coming down on these people. Your friend Vinny in New York, I envision this. I had a dream about him and I could almost vision what he looks like. And I think he's a good man and a God-given person that's been brought to us. We've all been brought together, you know. And when you get enough people bound together for a common cause, common things happen. We're talking only common things. That's why we have to have a very simple common court.
Right.
Until we clean up all of the garbage, all the mess. Just think of this. Look at these politicians that are running in our cities and our states and our towns. Look at the statements that they're saying against each other. What got me, Bernie Sanders, who I believed in, turns around after he said all that stuff about Hillary Clinton and everything else and joins her.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I would never, ever backtrack on what I stand for and what I state. And we have this irrefutable evidence and we have the factual proof. And if it's laying before you and you don't review the facts and you try and pass it off and say, oh, we're not going to take jurisdiction on this, or we're just going to deny it, oh, we're going to lie about it and we're going to misinterpret it and misstate it, and we're going to pass it up to a higher court. This is where Wanker needs to be removed now. What she just did on the Willing case and file that and claim what Willings was claiming, what his issues were in his habeas corpus, is totally false, isn't it?
Yes.
Wasn't none of his argument, was it? Ron?
No. But that's normal though. She does that. She's done that on other cases.
She did it to Robert Carson, but because Robert Carson knew somebody, he got some headway done. There's a lot of people that buck against her, and she just lies all the time. She lied on my lawsuit against the town of Pahrump. She lied to the appeals court or the Supreme Court where I was going next. It was not true.
We're about to request an oral argument in front of the Nevada Ethics Judicial Commission, and we would like to present our oral arguments to them, Ross. And then what we'd like to do is invite Wanker there, and we would like to ask her why she did those things.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's where we're headed right
Yeah,
now.
we need
and we're
her
going to
now.
ask the Ethics Commission, if you're really legitimate and you stand for what's right, and you stand behind the Constitution and protection of its citizens against these people that abuse their power and discretion, then we want you to bring Wanker, and we want you to bring Robert Lane along with her, and we want to sit in front of the same commission, and we want to present our argument. And by the way, we'd like it to be an open forum where the citizens could watch it on TV or radio, and we want to just show you the facts and the truth, and we're going to show you that we're tired of them and their God Almighty power. Oh, I'm going to lock you up, and he's going to gag you, and I'm going to hold a hearing without you. I'm going to pull my gun, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to lock the doors. Well, that crap's over.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back.